All right, welcome back. We've got Olu Martins, who is the Executive Director, Canvassers for Democracy and the Rule of Law. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, talking about the preparations for elections, yes, we're almost there now. Who knows, hoping that...
Hopefully.
At least INEC says at the moment, all is well.
Yes.
So, but from your impression, in terms of the preparations, the briefings that INEC has given us, how would you assess their preparedness for the big day?
Well, thank you. And let me thank channels for always putting these very topical matters in the front burner. It was Patrick Henry that says that the collective freedoms of people cannot be guaranteed as long as the actions and inactions of government is shrouded in secrecy. So the job of media stations like INEC cannot be understated in the build-up to the activities of government, and to that we must thank channels. Talking about the elections proper, we all know that elections in Nigeria are a big deal because it is only as a government official in this country that you can use a Volkswagen Beetle this year, and before the end of this year, the prayer of your pastor, by the assistance of government, can manifest, and then you can move from a Volkswagen Beetle to several SUVs within a very short time. So for us on this side...
They all don't go to church, don't forget.
Well, when I say that...
I get your point.
Yeah, the point is that we're very spiritual in this country. So it is in government. So
religious or spiritual?
Say that again?
Religious or spiritual?
Well, religious, spiritual, eventually, it's like 6.5 a dozen. Yeah, but bottom line is that 80% of Nigeria's political class are in politics for personal gain, aggrandizement, avarice, and economic profiteering. Their aim, ab initio, is to annex Nigeria as an extension of their private estate. So for them, it's a business.
But don't you think that has changed, especially now that the younger people are coming into the
The younger people are coming to contest, sir. They have not held public office. It's a different ball game. They are only testing the water. They have not been given the coconut water to drink. So they are just at the ferry, trying to see how does this thing, work. So if you now give him that template, you will understand that when a businessman enters, all he wants to do is to make more money. For us in this country and the political class, it's not a moral issue. It's like a man would say, it's strictly business. Strictly business. So if you now look at that, you can understand why the tension is high, visibly high too, because these guys, not their own, then they find. And that now accounts for the 2019 election. INEC has told us again and again, and we must commend this INEC. Where the INEC chairman gets his strength from, I do not know. But clearly it's not from the ruling party. Because the bulk of the vilification and the knocks that the INEC has gotten is more from the ruling party. So where the man gets his strength from is the only one I can explain. But we must commend the chairman of INEC and the bulk of the officers who work with him. However, is that the INEC does not have its own police. The INEC does not have its own aeroplane. The INEC must depend, because elections are multi-sectoral, it must depend on the other segments. So when we say independent, in fairness, sir, it is dependent electoral commission.
How do you think it's going to play out with the president's comments to deal decisively with people who want to snatch ballot boxes?
My humble logomaki, sir, is that in a democracy, it's better to have the power of an elephant and to use it as an ant than to use the power of an ant and to have the power of an ant and to use it as an elephant. I thought that the president should have said exactly the opposite of what he said, and that security agents should be fair and firm. They should exercise restraint in a presidential system of government, especially for a country as ours that has been notorious by amnesty reports for extrajudicial killings that the military has consistently denied. But our experiences with security agents on the streets, normal on the street, for me, it's not very palatable.
Yeah, but the other part of the president's statement is he also said, look, Nigerians must be respected. So if he was trying to put a message across saying, look, we want people to go out there and be free of intimidation. They should be free to exercise their civic responsibility, and that he wants anyone who goes in there with the purpose, the sole purpose of disturbing or upsetting the system, be dealt with. So if that was what he meant and it came across that way, what do we do?
Well, I think that what the president said is subject to multiple interpretations, depending on the side that you are looking at it from. But I was comforted by what the INEC chairman said subsequently when he said, those who commit electoral offenses should be dealt with by the law that is clear on what should be done.
What about what Chief of Army Staff said?
Well, again, you see why I say the personal system of government is a very personal system of government. It takes the life of the president. If a president is a hardliner, you are likely going to have his lieutenants being hardliners. If the president, like the former president, is, if there's such a word, a softliner who says my blood is not what the life, nobody's life is what nobody's blood is what my election. Most likely is that his lieutenants will take the life, the nature of the leader. Look at what is happening in America. Yes, some of the people who handle the media for Donald Trump, they almost talk like him. They are brash, they are harsh, because that's the presidential system of government. So we need to be careful that the president doesn't leave any ambiguity, especially when it has to do with a contestation where people are trying to outdo each other. We must not lose sight of the fact that, in spite of the fact that he is the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, he is a contestant. He's a dramatist person. He has interest in this matter. So his body language and statement will be misconstrued, especially for an election that already people are already asking themselves. My sister came in from the UK.
Are you saying?
By the last elections to vote. She's still around.
Are you saying that the president's statement is for his own interest?
It can be implied. I'm saying that if, for instance, he is an interest, if the president were not contesting, perhaps, but he is an interested party. And that is why Shakespeare says, you cannot construe what is in a man's mind by the shape of his physiognomy. So his statement must not be subject to multiple interpretations. As it stands today, the statement of Mr. President is subject to multiple interpretations, the end of which may create some level of apathy.
What's your interpretation of some of the calls for the redeployment of some of the resident electoral commissioners at the moment?
You see, I think it was Ptolemy that said that politicians don't believe themselves. So they are surprised when the electorate believe them. Oh, what? That joke I did. You meet me, I don't talk that thing. That joke. So they are surprised. I say so against the backdrop that this INEC has not changed. It was this INEC that conducted the Osun election, that conducted the Ekiti election. Go and read the comments of those who are crying blue mother now. They hailed INEC. And I tell you, that's the nature of human beings, especially Nigerian politicians, who cannot be trusted with their statements. Let's take into cognizance a particular state that has received some Akwa Ibom. Fortunately, I've done some work in both states. And I'm interested because I also did work with Barrister Mike Igini when he was INEC rep in Edo State. When the man left, a valedictory service was held for him, the first in its kind, where all parties, including APC, were there to say this man has done a good job. 11 states in the Southeast, only Edo State had a senator, Senator Francis Alamekina, under the watchful eyes of Mike Igini. So if you look at the antecedents of these people that they are calling for their redeployment, they haven't demonstrated any personal interest in the matter. At any rate, when somebody says he can put his hand on the Quran, so it doesn't mean anything. Because the truth of the matter is that when you go to court, the judge, everybody puts his hand on the Quran. The defendant and the accused, as the case may be. But yeah, the judge wants to hear both of them. If he thought that putting your hand on the Bible, on the Quran, would mean that he will say the truth, he will not also hear both parties. He understands that you can put your hand on the Quran and still lie. That's person. After you let me hear this other person say, oh, so it doesn't mean anything. We must come out with clear fact. Akwa Ibom, for instance, the challenge there is that Some people want the ad hoc staff. They want to recruit the ad hoc staff, train the ad hoc staff, and redeploy the ad hoc staff. That's how it had been. Before now, Akwa Ibom had polling units in people's houses until the president-elect came there and moved them out of people's houses. So you can understand why people are crying. How can you want to be in charge, of ad hoc staff? And then the man is saying, look, it can't work like that. Everybody must be given a level playing field. So when you appoint people, and then at the end of the day, you are the one, the people who had done their job for where you had hailed them before, you now come back to say, those people are doing a shoddy job. I am afraid that, like typical of Nigerians, when we contest, when we fight dirty in this country. And I've given you a preamble to it. It is because for us, what matters is how I can line my pocket. Once my economic security is threatened, clearly is that I'm going to go out there. And so all of the calls for the redeployment, they are unfounded. This INEC plus most of the resident commissioners have proven that they know their job and they are ready to follow it according to the dictates and dictum of the election.
One of the